let's talk tools. There are only 3 different tools you need to use a bake oven. You need an ash scraper, a peel, and a swab. Let's check them out. This is my swab, very basic. A stick, a piece of burlap, held on by a metal clamp, a hose clamp from a motor. Very, very simple. Let's see what else we have. This is my ash scraper. It's made from a piece of rebar, which indicates it was made in the early 20th century at least, probably not in the 19th century. I'm not sure when rebar was invented, but I'm pretty sure it was a 20th century invention. We found this at a farm. They had a bake oven, and we didn't. This is when we were still living in the town of Bethlehem. It was only 50 cents. But Christian was upset. He said, "We don't have a bake oven." And I said, "No, but we will." And we do. When we went to the Deibler homestead in the Ness Valley, it turns out at their bake oven, they were using an all wooden ash scraper. I would suggest soaking this in water before you use it, because with the heat of the fire and the large number of very hot coals in it, I don't really think this would last very long if it wasn't kept damp. Now, peels have a great deal of variety. This is a traditional metal peel at the top with a wooden handle on it. Again, as with any pizza restaurant, you're going to push it in and pull out the baked goods. There are also peels made entirely of iron. This was beaten out probably in the 18th century. It's a short-handled peel, the type that you would use not for a large outdoor bake oven like we're using today, but for a smaller indoor bake oven where the depth would not be that great. This very narrow peel also came from the Deibler homestead bake oven, as did this one. Exactly what they used this peel for, I'm not sure. We have a short, all wooden peel, again designed probably for an interior bake oven with a short depth of the actual hearth, because we have a very short handle. So these are the basic tools that you're going to need for the bake oven. There are also something else that you could use, and I'll bring them right back. I have here 2 drying racks that were made for the Deibler bake oven. Drying was typically done in the evening, in the evening of your baked day, when the temperature of the oven was below 212 degrees, so that the food was not cooking, but would still be warm enough to dry overnight. These are shaped so that they fit inside the oven. Typically, you would put a cloth on top of each drying rack and then you insert it. There's one for the left, there's one for the right. Typically, there was a third drying rack that could go straight down the middle, depending on how wide your bake oven is. With these large drying racks, you could dry up to a half bushel of corn at a time. It was an amazingly efficient drying machine. if you did not want to use a wooden door for your bake oven, you could buy a door. They came in two pieces like this. There was the frame that you set into the opening of the bake oven as you're building it, and the door itself fits on pintles or hinges, allowing it to open and shut. There is a damper here for letting air in and out, and often these were decorated. The name of the furnace or the iron foundry was imprinted on it. They were really very nice pieces. The only problem I have with them is that they really absorb the heat from the oven and make it cool off much faster than a wooden door. The wood acts as a really good insulator, which the iron, of course, does not. They're very lightweight. They were made to be taken out of, say, the summer house to the bake oven and used for preparation. You would store your rice straw baskets on here, your pies, cakes, whatever, as you were baking. In the 19th century, local furniture makers came up with the idea of a freestanding flour chest made very much like a blanket chest, only taller to hold the flour. Let's look inside. What you'll see is that there is a board for the actual kneading of the bread. There is also a dough box for the raising of the bread. And what you'll also see is this white sort of stain here, which indicates that the dough actually rose up and hit the bottom of the lid. These were very handy tools and indicate the vast amount of flour that was used in a traditional bake day. The reason we're here is I want to show you another way of storing flour. This is a dry sink, and right here, as I open up the drawer, what you'll see is that the flour bin comes out. You can store all of your flour in here. As you need it, just push it back up when you're done. Shut the door, and voila, there is a neat way of storing flour. The only problem with this is that it's easily accessible to mice. This is what I generally use for keeping flour in these days. It's just a 5-gallon metal, originally lard tin. It's great because the mice can't chew their way through it. 5-gallon plastic buckets with lids on them are equally good for storing and preserving flour. Now, for the actual preparation of the dough, we're going to go through a history lesson here. The earliest types of dough risers were simple wooden troughs. A single piece of wood. The craft is called treenware in this country, the craft of carving utensils and tools from blocks of wood. This large dough trough is from Eastern Germany, and it's the one I prefer to use. It's cupped at each end. As I knead the dough, my fingers actually follow the curve of the trough very naturally and make it easy to mix and knead the dough. This smaller dough trough is from Ukraine, and we're going to be using this for our whole wheat bread. At some point in the colonial era in the 18th century, furniture makers went from doing a single trough of wood to a box. This is the dough box. They're made very much like cradles, actually. They're often dovetailed or rabbeted together in terms of fitting the wooden sides together. Instead of having a curved interior as with the dough tray, the sides of the dough box meet the bottom at almost a right angle. So your fingers are going almost straight down, bending and then over as you mix and knead the dough. Once the dough is set, there is a lid to put on top. This lid keeps out the drafts and helps keep the dough warm as it rises. The cleaning out of both the dough troughs and the dough boxes was done with dough scrapers. I have a couple of examples here, traditional examples. The sharp edges here, or the severe angles to the edges, make it easy to go down the straight sides of a four-sided dough box. However, these same sharp angles are useless when you're trying to go through the curved interior of a dough trough. For that, I had a local blacksmith make this half-moon shaped dough scraper, which is perfect for actually following the curved edges and the curved interiors of the dough trough. Some houses where they had a lot of dough and a lot of bread had a dough table. You can make a lot of bread in here. This is one that's on leads. You actually get to bend over and mix and knead the dough. This one really pulls on my back. After the dough is set and kneaded, you simply put the cover on it to retain the heat on the interior, and you can use the top as a cutting board or a preparation board. As the dough is taken out of the dough tables and dough troughs and set and shaped for the second rising, traditionally they would use rye straw baskets. Rye straw came from growing the rye grain, which was actually the primary ingredient for bread on Pennsylvania German farms. The rye straw can be 5 to 6 feet high. It makes a very nice braid. What binds these braids together is oak splints from the local oak trees. But you don't have to have rye straw baskets. This is a modern reed basket that looks like a rye straw basket. Or you can even go down to your local thrift store, Salvation Army, consignment shop, and get some Christmas baskets or Easter baskets. Anything that's round, you will shape into your round loaf of bread.